Imagine a world where your favorite story is erased from existence, deemed too dangerous or controversial. Banned books represent the power of ideas and the lengths some will go to suppress them. Today I'll explore some forbidden books and other banned texts, so get ready for a scandalous ride through history. The Gospel of Barnabas. Did you hear about the ancient Bible that was discovered in Turkey in 2012? It's a fascinating story, but there's a twist. The Bible is around 1500 years old, featuring leather pages with gold letters. It's written in Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. The media went a little nuts because it included statements from Jesus predicting the coming of Muhammad. But is it the real deal? Well, according to experts, it's likely nothing but a hoax created by a medieval forger, possibly a European Jewish scholar. People who speak modern Assyrian quickly noticed errors in the inscription, such as using the term book instead of more appropriate references to the Bible like Holy Book. This raised red flags since it's unlikely that monks would make such basic mistakes. So why were some Muslim media outlets so excited about this discovery, if it's most likely a fake? It's because they highlighted this discovery as proof of Jesus predicting Muhammad's arrival, a claim that's in alignment with Islamic beliefs. However, there's a clear date mix-up. This text is said to be from 1500 AD, but Muhammad lived around 630 AD, which doesn't make much sense. I mean, why would a text written in 1500 AD predict something that happened nearly 900 years earlier? The ancient Bible has been labeled the Gospel of Barnabas. Turkish Minister of Culture and Tourism Ertuğrul Günay pointed out that this text portrays Jesus as a human, not a divine being, and that means it rejects the idea of the Holy Trinity and the crucifixion. Then there's the whole predicting Muhammad's arrival thing. So even from an Islamic perspective, the text has flaws. It mentions 9 heavens and a 10th paradise, while the Quran speaks of only 7 heavens. It says Mary gave birth to Jesus without pain, contradicting the Quran. And it also claims that Jesus told Hebrew clerics that he wasn't the Messiah, calling Muhammad the Messiah instead. This blends their identities in a way that doesn't really align with either Christian or Islamic teachings. Historically, the text also slips up. It mentions 3 armies in ancient Palestine, each with 200,000 soldiers. However, historians note the entire population back then was likely less than 200,000. This and other inaccuracies suggest it's a well-crafted fake. A clue in chapter 217 mentions using pounds as a weight unit, a system introduced much later during the Ottoman Empire. Whoops. So what's the takeaway? This so-called Gospel of Barnabas is likely a fascinating forgery created by someone with knowledge of both the Quran and the Gospels, but with questionable motives. Despite the doubts, some have reported its claims as fact, potentially stirring tensions between Christian and Muslim communities. But what do you think is the truth here? Let me know in the comments. The Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is a captivating read. It's filled with angels, rebellion, and ancient mysteries. So why isn't it part of the official Bible? First off, what is the Book of Enoch about? This ancient text tells the story of 200 watchers, or angels, who were sent to watch over humanity. Sounds like a pretty intense job description, right? However, instead of sticking to their job, these watchers took human women as wives, had children with them, and taught humans various skills and sciences. The Watchers didn't just break some rules, they majorly crossed a line. Their actions led to the birth of the Nephilim, giant beings who were violent and destructive. Plus, the skills they taught humans weren't always beneficial. For instance, Azazel, one of the Watchers, taught humans how to make weapons and cosmetics. Semjaza, the leader of the Watchers, taught enchantments and root cutting, which some early Christians interpreted as witchcraft. These teachings led to chaos and corruption among humans. So how did God deal with the Watchers? Well, God was not pleased with the Watchers' rebellion. He sent archangels to imprison them in Tartarus, which is described as a deep abyss in the Book of Enoch, until their final judgment. Enoch, the main character of this text, was shown visions of what would happen to the Watchers and their offspring. These visions revealed the destructive consequences of the Watchers' actions, both on humanity and themselves. But come on, what's the big deal about the knowledge shared by the Watchers? Isn't knowledge a good thing? Well, not all the time. At first glance, the knowledge they shared seems similar to what the archangel shared with Enoch. sciences and skills. However, the Watchers' teachings led to negative outcomes like violence, idolatry, and separation from God. In contrast, the knowledge shared with Enoch by the archangels was authorized by God and helped people understand the natural world and strengthen their faith. The contents of this book sound extremely important, right? So why is it that the Book of Enoch is considered non-canonical? Early Christian leaders like Irenaeus and Tertullian viewed the Watchers and their influence negatively. They believed the Watchers' teachings promoted sinful practices and led humanity astray, and over time, this perspective contributed to the Book of Enoch being excluded from the canonical Bible. The older sections of the book are estimated to date back to between 300 and 200 BC. It was discovered in 1947 in the Qumran caves in the Judean desert. This is the same place where the Dead Sea Scrolls were unearthed. On the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. This next book literally changed the world. On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres was written by Nicolaus Copernicus, a Polish astronomer. In the book, he proposed a radical idea. The sun, not the Earth, was the center of the solar system. This idea, known as the heliocentric theory, was groundbreaking and shook the foundations of how people understood the universe. Who was Nicolaus Copernicus? Copernicus, a devout Catholic and an ordained canon of the Church, spent 30 years writing his masterpiece. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1543, right before or just after the book was published. This book challenged the widely accepted Earth-centered, geocentric model of the universe proposed by Aristotle and Ptolemy. At the time, the geocentric model was deeply ingrained in both scientific and religious thought. The Catholic Church and Protestant leaders like Martin Luther saw Copernicus's ideas as heretical. The heliocentric theory also conflicted with biblical passages such as the story of Joshua commanding the sun to stand still. This was interpreted as evidence that the sun moved around the earth. Though Copernicus's model wasn't perfect, he thought planetary orbits were circular. It inspired other astronomers. Johannes Kepler improved on the model by discovering that planets orbit in ellipses. Galileo Galilei used his telescope to provide more evidence for the heliocentric theory, observing moons orbiting Jupiter and the phases of Venus. The Catholic Church was very protective of its teachings during the Reformation. In 1559, they created the Index of Forbidden Literature to prevent the spread of heretical ideas. Copernicus's book made the list in 1616, after Galileo began promoting it. The Church demanded that the book be altered to present the heliocentric theory as purely hypothetical, or else it couldn't be sold. But was it altered? Nope. That meant that most people in Europe couldn't purchase the book at all. For supporting this idea, Galileo faced severe backlash from the Church. And back then, the Church had a lot of power and influence. In the 1630s, after publishing his own book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, he was declared a heretic. He was then forced to renounce his support of the heliocentric model. This stifling of scientific inquiry by the Church caused significant tension. However, by 1758, the heliocentric model was widely accepted among scientists. Pope Benedict XIV removed Copernicus's book from the index, acknowledging that the battle against it was futile. And Isaac Newton's work had further solidified the heliocentric theory, making it impossible for the Church to deny its validity. Today, the Vatican now embraces scientific inquiry. It reopened its observatory in 1891 and engages in modern astronomical research, looking for distant galaxies and exploring the mysteries of the universe. The Index of Forbidden Literature was finally abolished in 1966 by Pope Paul VI. Thank goodness. And now for number 9, but first it's shout-out time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Schooly Audi and Maggie Skelly for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. Creative evolution. Have you ever been curious about the alternative theories to Darwin's evolution? If so, you'll want to hear about Henri Bergson's theory and a forbidden book with the same name called Creative Evolution. Let's find out why this once popular novel published in 1907 got the boot. Henri Bergson, a French philosopher, came up with creative evolution as a fresh take on how life evolved. Unlike Darwin, who focused on natural selection and survival of the fittest, Bergson introduced the idea of an élan vital, vital force, that guided evolution. But what exactly is the idea of élan vital? Well, imagine that life isn't just a bunch of random events and mechanical processes, but instead, it's driven by a special creative force. This force, according to Bergson, called élan vital, is like an invisible energy that pushes living things to evolve and become more complex and diverse over time. Think of it as a creative spark that helps life grow, change, and develop in amazing ways, rather than just relying on natural selection and survival of the fittest. This idea suggests that there's something more dynamic and purposeful behind the way life evolves. Bergson's book was so well received that he even snagged a Nobel Prize. So what made his theory stand out? Well, Darwin's theory has some tricky spots, like explaining how new species arise and how complex organs develop all at once. Bergson's answer? A vital force that drives evolution forward, not just random mutations. His theory seemed to solve some issues with Darwin's theory of evolution. Bergson argued that this force is like gravity or electromagnetism, a fundamental part of nature we just can't fully explain. And Bergson wasn't just winging it. He used scientific and philosophical arguments to back his ideas. Creative Evolution became a bestseller, translated into 20 languages. People loved Bergson's fresh perspective, especially since he was a big-shot philosopher. His theory seemed to offer a solution to some of Darwinism's biggest puzzles, which made it attractive to many scholars. So, if it was so popular, why was it banned? Even though it was initially quite successful, Creative Evolution didn't sit well with everyone, especially the scientific community. The main reason? Lack of empirical evidence. Bergson's theory couldn't be tested or proven, which is a big no-no in science. Over time, the scientific community moved on to other theories, leaving Bergson's ideas behind. Bergson's work shows how scientific theories can evolve, pun intended, and why they must stand up to scrutiny. But while Creative Evolution offered a captivating alternative to Darwinism, it ultimately fell short of the scientific standards required for lasting acceptance. The Anarchist Cookbook. If you've never heard of the Anarchist Cookbook, get ready for a wild ride. The Anarchist Cookbook is a notorious book written by William Powell in 1971. It became famous, or infamous, for its instructions on making explosives and conducting guerrilla warfare. Think of it as a DIY guide, but for dangerous and illegal activities. Powell was an anti-war activist who, at the tender age of 19, wrote this controversial book. But later in life, he regretted it deeply. A documentary filmmaker interviewed him in France, where he spent many years working on positive global projects. He expressed that he hadn't read or touched a book in almost 50 years and hoped it would go out of print. Sadly, though, he passed away shortly after this interview. The Anarchist Cookbook isn't just any book. It includes detailed instructions on making bombs and other dangerous devices. Law enforcement sees it as a red flag. If this book pops up in your search history, you might find yourself on a list somewhere, and not a good one. If border officials find it, they will confiscate it because it's seen as evidence of contraband or criminality. So, is it illegal to own? Surprisingly, it's not illegal for the average person to own, buy, or download the Anarchist Cookbook. However, if you're involved in any criminal activities, having a copy can be a huge problem. Law enforcement can and will seize it during investigations and use it against you in court. Now, I know what you're wondering. Has it been used in crimes before? Sadly, yes. Several criminals, both right-wing and left-wing, have used this book as a guide for their illegal activities. Courts usually allow the book to be seized during raids, though they are careful about using it as evidence in trials to avoid infringing on First Amendment rights. So why not just ban it? While some argue for censorship to protect public safety, others believe that intellectuals should criticize and explain why such books shouldn't be followed. This book is often seized along with other incriminating items, which makes it hard to argue that it's just an innocent piece of literature. But then again, it could also be used for good, right? Let's say you have read this book before and have a basic understanding of how explosives work. Hypothetically, wouldn't you be better equipped to disarm a bomb or explosive, saving innocent lives? While the anarchist cookbook can be dangerous, banning it outright is tricky because it touches on freedom of speech and the right to read. Courts are cautious, balancing the book's relevance to crimes with potential prejudice against defendants' reading habits. The debate continues on how to handle such controversial works while protecting public safety and individual rights. 95 Theses. What happened on October 31st, 1517? Well, on this day, Martin Luther, a German monk, nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the church in Wittenberg. This bold move questioned the Catholic Church's practices, particularly the selling of indulgences, which were payments made for the forgiveness of sins. Basically, the Pope at the time, Pope Leo X, was telling his followers that they could essentially pay to get into heaven, and that just didn't sit right with Luther, and rightfully so. Why was this such a big deal? Luther's theses challenged the authority of the Church and sparked a massive conflict. The Catholic Church branded him a heretic, and the Holy Roman Empire declared him an outlaw. This marked the beginning of the Reformation, a major turning point in European history that changed religion, politics, and society forever. You may be wondering, how did Luther's ideas spread so quickly? Well, thanks to Johannes Gutenberg's invention of the printing press about 80 years earlier, Luther's ideas spread like wildfire. The printing press allowed for mass production of texts, making it possible for Luther's theses and other writings to reach a wide audience quickly. This was the first time in history that a movement was propelled by the power of mass media. The invention of the printing press had a huge impact on society. Luther's works became the first bestsellers in history. His supporters in the German printing industry churned out copies of his writings, making Luther one of the most famous men in Europe. The printing press played a crucial role in spreading his ideas and fueling the Reformation. Indulgences were sold by the Church as a way to reduce the amount of punishment one had to undergo for sins. Luther argued that this practice was corrupt and that salvation could not be bought. He believed that faith and repentance were the true paths to forgiveness. Luther's clash with the Church didn't just transform Christianity, it also changed European politics and society. The Reformation led to the rise of Protestantism, a movement that opposed the Catholic Church's practices and emphasized personal faith and the authority of the Bible. Is Luther still important today? Absolutely. Martin Luther's actions sparked a movement that forever changed the religious landscape. The Reformation paved the way for modern concepts of religious freedom and the role of media in shaping public opinion. So next time you think about how quickly news can spread, remember Martin Luther and his 95 Theses, a true testament to the power of ideas and the printed word. The Art of Love. Publius Ovidius Naso, known as Ovid, wrote the Ars Amatoria, The Art of Love, in 2 AD, a cheeky guide to seduction and romance in ancient Rome. But it wasn't just scandalous. It got him banished from Rome by Emperor Augustus 6 years later. Talk about a book causing a stir. Listen to this and let me know in the comments if you think this is a book that truly should be banned. Ovid's work was so scandalous that it endured bans for centuries. First, it was burned by preacher Girolamo Savonarola in 1497 during his notorious Bonfire of the Vanities. Then Christopher Marlowe dared to translate it in 1599, only to have his version banned too. Even US Customs got in on the act in 1930, nearly 2,000 years later. That's one book with serious power in the Banned Books Hall of Fame. But who was Ovid anyway? He was born in 43 BC in Sulmona. Ovid was a master of Latin love poetry, up there with famous poets like Virgil and Horace. His works, including the epic Metamorphoses, influenced artists and writers for centuries. He was like the ancient Roman Shakespeare of love and transformation. What was it about the Ars Amatoria that made it so scandalous? Well, let me tell you, this isn't your typical love manual. Divided into 3 books, it's a playful, sometimes naughty guide. Book 1 teaches men how to seduce women in theaters and banquets. Book 2 advises on keeping a lover happy. It includes secrets like not giving too many gifts and, the importance of simultaneous happiness, if you catch my drift. Book 3 flips the script, teaching women how to be masters of seduction themselves, from playing games to making their lovers jealous. So why did Augustus ban the book? Ovid's novel clashed with Augustus's laws promoting family values and monogamy. With its tips on seduction and adultery, it was like ancient Rome's version of a scandalous tell-all. Some even think Ovid knew too much about political secrets, adding another layer of intrigue to his banishment. But wait, there's a twist. Some scholars think Ovid might have exaggerated his alleged banishment. Conspiracy theories swirl, suggesting that he may have had insider knowledge that put him on the wrong side of power. Whether fact or fiction, his story adds to the mystery surrounding this literary rebel. Despite its controversial past, Ars Amatoria is still widely studied today. It's even a staple in school curricula worldwide. Its blend of wit, wisdom, and scandalous tips on love continues to captivate readers and scholars alike. So if Ovid aimed to make a lasting impression, he certainly succeeded. From ancient Rome to modern classrooms, Ovid's Ars Amatoria proves that forbidden fruit can be the sweetest, or at least the longest lasting. Dante's Divine Comedy. What's the big deal about Dante's Divine Comedy? Dante Alighieri wasn't just any old poet. He took his grudges to epic levels in his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, written between 1308 and 1321. This three-part poem, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, takes readers on a wild journey through hell, purgatory, and heaven, guided by none other than the Roman poet Virgil and Dante's love interest, Beatrice. It's like the ultimate road trip, but with sin, redemption, and divine revelation. That being said, why in the world was it banned? Dante's critique of church leaders in the poem and his portrayal of them roasting in hell didn't exactly sit well with the powers that be. His bold themes of justice, redemption, and the human spirit challenged the church's authority and norms. No wonder parts of the Divine Comedy ended up on the church's naughty list, the index of forbidden literature. It was like Dante was poking the establishment with a literary stick. Technically, though, the church never officially slapped a ban on the Divine Comedy, but they sure tried to suppress it. For centuries, they frowned upon its unorthodox take on religious teachings. Yet Dante's work survived and thrived, becoming a symbol of artistic defiance and Italian cultural identity. What made this piece of literature so special was that Dante didn't just write a poem, he crafted an entire universe with words. His vivid description of hell's fiery pits, purgatory's cleansing fires, and heaven's ethereal realms tickled people's imaginations and sparked heated debates. Plus, he penned it in the Tuscan dialect, shaping modern Italian as we know it today. Talk about poetic power. The Divine Comedy is a timeless journey of the soul. Dante's quest for truth and salvation resonates across ages, inspiring countless artists and thinkers. Whether you're into epic tales, deep philosophy, or just want to see popes getting roasted, figuratively, Dante's got you covered. The Three Books of Occult Philosophy. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, a theologian and occult writer, stirred up quite a storm with his ambitious work titled The Three Books of Occult Philosophy, published in 1533. This comprehensive treatise dives deep into magic, astrology, and the mystical arts. Divided into 3 volumes, each explores different aspects of magic, natural, celestial, and ceremonial, as well as elemental and planetary. In the books, natural magic focuses on the manipulation of natural elements. No surprise there. Celestial and ceremonial magic involves rituals and astral influences, while elemental and planetary magic deals with the forces governing the cosmos and their effect on human affairs. Upon its publication, the Three Books of Occult Philosophy garnered both admiration and condemnation. Its intricate exploration of mystical practices and its assertion that human will could command natural and supernatural forces challenged prevailing religious and theological doctrines. The Catholic Church in particular viewed Agrippa's teachings as heretical and dangerous, fearing they could undermine established beliefs and authority. As a consequence, the book faced bans and condemnations, with religious authorities striving to suppress its distribution. But despite these challenges, Agrippa's work wielded a profound influence on the development of Western esoteric thought. It showed how everything in nature and the universe is connected, mixing deep thinking with practical advice on using magical powers. The treatise not only influenced subsequent occultists and magicians, but also contributed to the broader cultural and intellectual landscape of the Renaissance. Agrippa himself faced opposition and scrutiny from religious authorities throughout his life, partly due to his association with controversial ideas and writings. His defense of magic and the occult as legitimate fields of study challenged the dominant theological orthodoxy of his time, and this earned him a reputation as both a visionary and a heretic. But even though they were banned and condemned, the 3 books of occult philosophy endured beyond Agrippa's lifetime. And today they continue to inspire generations of scholars and practitioners interested in the mystical and arcane. The Book of Giants. The Book of Giants is an apocryphal text, meaning it mimics the style of biblical books but isn't considered part of the Bible. Written before the 2nd century BC, it's set in the pre-flood era, echoing elements from the biblical book of Genesis, but adding imaginative details. It explores the Nephilim mentioned in the Book of Enoch, which are described in Genesis chapter 6 verse 4 as mighty beings born from the union of angels and humans. These giants were renowned for their immense size and their destructive impact on humanity and the world. And in this ancient tale, the prophet Enoch plays a pivotal role, attempting to mediate on behalf of these giants. Or in other words, God was angry with how they were acting, and Enoch was letting them know that bad things would happen if they didn't shape up. One giant, Mahaweh, seeks counsel from Enoch, who warns of their impending doom. However, their fate is sealed by the archangel Raphael, who predicts their downfall and the eventual flood sent by God to cleanse the earth of their chaos. So why isn't the Book of Giants included in the Bible alongside canonical texts like Genesis? When early Christian scholars were deciding on the canonization of biblical books, they set strict criteria. Books had to be authored by apostles or those closely associated with them. They had to be accepted broadly by the Christian community. They also had to teach consistent doctrine and uphold high moral and spiritual values. The Book of Giants, although influential in ancient Jewish and Mesopotamian cultures, simply did not meet these criteria. It was seen as more of a mythical account than a divinely inspired scripture. But despite its exclusion from the Bible, the Book of Giants provides valuable perspectives into ancient cultures and their beliefs. It reflects the curiosity of early societies about the origins of giants and the reasons behind cataclysmic events like the flood. These stories provided explanations for natural phenomena and served to reinforce moral teachings through vivid narratives. Today, while the Book of Giants isn't considered scripture, it remains a fascinating piece of ancient literature. It invites its readers to explore the intersections of myth, history, and religious belief. It offers glimpses into how our ancestors understood their world and grappled with profound questions about existence and divine justice. And it also makes you wonder, did giants really once roam the earth? What do you think? I mean, there's a whole book dedicated to them. Gregorio Leti and his forbidden works. Gregorio Leti, a prominent Italian historian and satirist born in 1630, gained notoriety for his critical writings about the Catholic Church, particularly its leadership. His works, including biographies and histories, were all placed on the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the Catholic Church's list of banned books. Yep, all of them. Leti's career was marked by controversy and opposition from religious authorities. Or in other words, the church and its leaders just really didn't like this guy or anything he had to say. Born in Milan, Leti faced numerous challenges from a young age, including the loss of his parents and a strict upbringing under his uncle's care. Initially educated by Jesuits, he later converted to Protestantism, a decision that further distanced him from the Catholic Church. Leti's travels across Europe brought him into contact with influential figures like Louis XIV of France and Charles II of England. These were experiences that shaped his critical views on European politics and religion. Leti's most notorious works were biographies that sharply criticized papal figures such as Pope Sixtus V. Historians have often denounced these biographies as unreliable and exaggerated. According to them, they're filled with scandalous anecdotes and satirical commentary that deeply offended Catholic sensibilities and directly challenged the Church's authority. But hey, maybe the Church needed to be challenged. Leti faced criticism from Catholic and secular historians for inaccuracies and sensationalism, but despite this, his writings found a receptive audience among Protestant circles, resonating particularly with his critiques of Catholicism. His biographies, although officially condemned and banned by the Catholic Church, were widely read and translated across Europe. They reflected the enduring interest in his provocative interpretations of history. Gregorio Letti's legacy remains one of defiance against religious orthodoxy and a testament to the power of literature to challenge established authority. His life and writings are still debated by scholars, showing how historical facts, storytelling, and censorship politics intertwined in early modern Europe. Through his bold critiques and controversial writings, Letti contributed to shaping public opinion and influencing the historical narratives of his time. Jesus' secret teachings. In a recent discovery in 2017, scholars unearthed Greek fragments of an ancient text called the First Apocalypse of James, which reveals Jesus' secret teachings to his supposed brother James. This text, part of the Nag Hammadi library, describes a Gnostic perspective on Jesus and the heavenly realm. Previously known only through Coptic translations, these 5th or 6th century AD fragments shed new light on early Christian beliefs. The Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of ancient texts discovered in Egypt in 1945, includes controversial works known as the Gnostic Gospels. These texts, like the First Apocalypse of James, were considered heretical by the Church. This was because they didn't fit the religious boundaries set in the 4th century for the New Testament's 27 books. The discovery has excited scholars like Jeffrey Smith and Brent Landau from the University of Texas at Austin, who found the fragments in Oxford University archives. They describe the document as containing Jesus' teachings to James about the heavenly realm and future events such as James's own death. James, known as James the Just, was a leader in the early church, and biblical texts like the Gospel of Matthew and Mark mention Jesus having brothers, including James. But the term brother in these contexts may refer to a spiritual rather than biological relationship, so it's a little confusing to identify the truth here. The manuscript, written with meticulous care, suggests it was used in educational settings, possibly as a teaching aid, due to its neat handwriting and syllable divisions. Landau explains that such divisions were rare in ancient manuscripts but common in educational texts. Overall, the First Apocalypse of James offers a glimpse into alternative Christian beliefs and teachings that were suppressed by the mainstream church. Even though it was banned, the text is still important for learning about early Christian ideas that go beyond what's in the Bible. Do you think the church should do away with labeling books as canonical and non-canonical and let the people decide for themselves what's true and what's not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But anyways, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.